Yes, sir. Okay, so I'm just hitting this thing in. I'm gonna let a few people get into the room before we really get this thing cranking off. Appreciate you guys for jumping in really early. See, we got a couple people already lined up in here for Teague's take. Man, I'm so excited about this evening. I'm actually excited about a whole lot of stuff that you guys are going to hear about or see on the screen and stuff because I need to tell you that season 5 of Teague's take starts 2 weeks from now. Can you believe me and JT been doing this podcast for going in our 5th year already? And man, it's going to be fabulous. We got a new look, a lot of new things are going to be happening, new sponsors, new content. So make sure you go ahead and hit that subscribe button. If you aren't, send people to our page, send people to this page so they can get ready for what's going to be coming up in a couple of weeks. What's cracking, lacking, cutsy, man. It's all good. It's all good. Thank you for coming down this weekend too, making that drive. I do appreciate it. But again, I'm really excited about that. And I'll go ahead and give Cuts a shout out right here. This thing over my shoulder right here. Y'all see that Bama thing and the other one with me carrying the flag? Cuts by Jones, man. Y'all need to hit him up. He's making these things fantabulous, right? Roll Tide. Yes, sir. Welcome in to all the folks from the Bama Standard. Thank you for the collaboration that we have, being able to stream on multiple platforms. We love everybody that's there. Hit the subscribe button on whatever channel that you're on. Make sure you're paying attention to what's going on with Teague's Take, because 2 weeks, season 5 starts. And it's going to be awesome. It's going to be totally, totally different. And look out for some other new stuff. I might be doing some Dallas Cowboys stuff too, but I ain't tell you that. I ain't tell you that just yet. Okay, so what I do need to do, I will not have JT here tonight. He is at football practice. He at John Paul II High School right now, conducting football practice. So y'all know how it is when I'm trying to conduct or try to be the producer of the show. You're going to get what you're going to get. It's just what it is. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get this party started right now. Okay, so now that we're officially started, I need to go ahead and say I need to get to my run out really fast because we got 2 special guests on here tonight. One's going to be the co-host, and the other one we're going to interview about it. But I want to go ahead and get my run out in right now so I can get their discussion. So the NCAA, they gave sanctions to Jim Harbaugh today, 2021, for some sanctions he had in 2021. They gave him a year suspension and 4 years show cause, they're calling it. They ordered him for alleged unethical conduct and noncompliance in 2021. So in short, if Harbaugh returns to college anytime before 2028, he's going to have to sit out a year. All right, so I get it. Harbaugh is going to leave the Chargers and his $80 million contract to head back to the NCAA. I don't think that's happening. But first of all, why would it take 3 years for the NCAA to come up with this ruling? And secondly, this is like Coach Wingo told me back in the day, man, you owe me some sprints from 1992. So when you come back, you're going to have to run double. Bro, that ain't happening, right? You ain't getting those sprints. And the NCAA ain't getting that 1 year suspension. So in 5 years, when Harbaugh decides he wants to go back to college and his probation time is over, he can coach for scot-free. This ruling is just semantics to me, and I think it's a waste of time. Am I wrong? And that's a Teague's Take. All right. So first, I want to bring in Griff Redmill. Let me tell y'all about him first, okay? He went to Walker High School. Man, this guy, you don't know it, though. He was a 3-sport athlete. He did football, basketball, track. He did it all, man. They called him Mr. Everything, right? He came to Bama as a defensive lineman, flipped over to the offensive lineman, so you know he had to be an athlete, right, just to be able to do that. He was a 3-year starter at left guard. What I really love the most is that he finally knocked off Auburn in Jordan-Hare in 1999. The first team to actually beat them down there in their own place. I think it was kind of cool. That was in 1999. He's an all SEC player, but more than all of that, if you get to know the guy, he's a hard worker. He's a servant, right? His heart is about serving because he serves on the board of Boys and Girls Clubs. He's the president of the Red Elephant Club in Huntsville. So I want to go ahead and welcome in my man, Griff Redmill. Yes, sir. Appreciate you, my man. Thank you for being here.
Hey, George, thanks for having me. Good to see you again.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. So be thinking about what I just said, because I'm going to go ahead and bring in our next guest, right? So Griff is going to be working as my co-host today. But I got another special guest that I want to bring in, right? And this guy, he's actually become a friend to me and to our family. We've had some really good times. He's talented in a lot of ways. This guy went to Clark County High School. You know, you're in the country when your school got county in the name. But anyway, the city is Grove Hill, but maybe he can explain to me why it's Clark County High School, but it was Grove Hill, Alabama. I don't understand all that. I'm from Montgomery. We had regular school names, right? But he committed to Alabama in 2004, and then he came in and played for us there. He led it 3 years as an offensive lineman, right? Played for Mike Shula and Nick Saban. So that's kind of cool to me that he did that. But his career has been great, right? So he's at Georgia State for a little bit of time as in the recruiting department. He worked with my coach, Bill Curry, before I actually played for Gene Stallings. He's worked as a director of player personnel or engagement with the Kansas City Chiefs. It's pretty awesome. Now he's the director of the A Club, which is our alumni association at Alabama, right? He works a lot with Griff Redmill and other Red Elephant Club associations. Y'all need to welcome in Mr. BJ DaBoer. Yes, sir. What's up, baby?
Thank you. I'm glad you didn't go too hard on Clark County High School, man. So I'll explain it to you whenever you want me to.
Go ahead and hit it right now, man. Tell me what
Clark County High School is the name of our school, which is in Grove Hill. Grove Hill is the county seat for the high school. So that's the county seat. So we're pretty much Clark County High School. That's no too much in-depth discussion around it.
You understand that, Griff? You understand what he's talking about?
Hey, listen, I totally get this, BJ, because I went to Walker High School, which is in Walker County, but Walker was not a county high school. It's a
city school.
Jasper, and my entire life people call it Walker County High School, but it was just Walker High School. The city.
I thought it was Walker County myself. I'm not gonna lie.
Nope. Doesn't make any sense, but you know.
Yeah.
Well, whatever. I went to Jeff Davis, and it was in Montgomery County.
Yeah, we all know about Jeff Davis.
Yeah, I know. Y'all tend to recruit out of there pretty heavily too.
Basketball school.
Okay, but all right. So before we get into discussion about Bama and all this stuff, talk to me about the run out that I had. If you got, I need to give you a little recap again. So they just hit Harbaugh with these sanctions. He's gone to the Chargers. To the Chargers. Left Michigan. They already beat us and did all this kind of stuff. Now this still happened 3-4 years ago. Right now, they come with this rule, and they're going to give him a 1-year probation, essentially. Well, they call it a 4-year, whatever the terminology is. I don't get it, man. I don't understand it. It seemed like a waste of time to me, but am I wrong? Griff, you go first. What do you think?
Colossal waste of time. You know, since the whole Penn State debacle years ago, the NCAA just really doesn't seem to have the teeth they used to have. And I think every now and then they got to come up with a reason to justify their existence. And I think this is a perfect example of it. I don't know why we're wasting our time and money and resources on a case that's irrelevant at this point, and a coach that's not relevant to the college landscape anymore. I mean, 4 years or 5 years, whatever you said. I mean, what's his NFL contract? What's the length on that? I mean, he's not coming back for that duration of time. So why is it a headline?
Right. Yeah. No, I agree. With you, BJ, what's your thoughts on it? You agree with me and him, or is it?
I really don't know, to be honest with you. There's a lot of insight that I have to kind of look more into, to be honest with you. It is interesting in terms of what Griff was alluding to, that I think his contract is about 5 years while he's in San Diego. Not San Diego, it's LA now. So 5 years there. So I don't know if there's much implications that will be placed on him in regards to the return. I don't know the facts of it, but I don't know, man. It definitely was something unlike I've ever seen. Granted, the conversation around signs and all that stuff has been one in the pros and also in college, and it was just something that was kind of assumed. But to see when you see pictures and things along those lines, it makes things a whole lot more real for you. Like the pictures of seeing him on the sideline and things like that, it makes things a little bit more real, and it makes it harder for people to really kind of just accept as status quo.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, it's kind of funny here. I don't know who this fake John Harbaugh is here, but it's pretty funny to me. I'll tell you.
That's
Great timing.
But we'll take it. So he has a whole lot to say about that, right? So shout out to John Harbaugh for being in the comment section as well. All right, I want to give a big special thanks to David Kendall for donating in here too. So there's a question here. Why don't y'all look at that? Can y'all see that? App State situation with players pulling their helmets off. Hear them hitting the other players with the helmet in the head. What are you doing as a coach? Well, you want me to go first? I think it's pretty stupid that players do anything like that. You saw it happen in the pros a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
I think it was the Steelers and somebody else where a guy took his head off and swung at somebody's head. It's dangerous, man. There's no reason for it. I mean, I was talking to someone today. It's kind of funny you talked about it. We're all kind of professionals or people that play at this level. It doesn't matter. We all got a few loose screws. And I'm talking about all of us, right? You got to have a certain amount of stuff in your neck to be able to play sports at this level. And we can get a little edgy. But it don't make any sense for you to try to punch anybody in the helmet. That's stupid. There's no reason for you to take a helmet off and swing it at somebody because it's dangerous. And personally, I think if something like that, people need to get sued. That's an assault. There's one thing in us having team fights, when we get in scuffles because those kind of happen. But when you're actually trying to literally try to kill someone or hurt someone like that, man, you need to be disciplined. That's my take. BJ, what'd you think?
I think you brought up a valid point from a legal standpoint. I think it was Myles Garrett and what's the quarterback for the Steelers, Randolph, whatever his name.
Backup quarterback.
Yes.
Yeah, and so apparently there was some messages passed, but I think it actually grew to the point of talking about assault. So when you see something of that magnitude of being brought from the outside and being brought in, it kind of lets you see the direction that the game is going. What typically wouldn't even be discussed is now on the table of discussion of a possibility of assault and all those things. So in general sense, as a coach, I assume you want to avoid it. I mean, the main goal is at that particular time is to win the game. If that takes away from winning the game, then that's hurtful to not only that player, but also the whole team. But then on top of that, the goal of the coaches also is to make better men. And I think that kind of takes away from that as well. That ability to kind of do that now. So, but I don't know all the details of it. I have limited knowledge on it, but if it is what we're reading it as, there's going to have to be some discussions around it, and probably, like you said, some type of, I don't know, sitting out, whatever you want to call it. So it just depends on the situation.
Okay. Griff, we got to take before we move on.
Yeah, you made a great point. It's something I've said for a long time. There's a very fine line between being a great football player and being absolutely crazy. And so there's a little bit of that in all these guys, but what makes you a valuable teammate and a valuable player in person is your ability to control that anger in a tense situation and keep your cool. And, you've seen this happen before, like you both mentioned. And, more times than not, it's not going to come down to the coach punishing them because there's going to be punishment coming down from the league or the league office. But yeah, I've been in my share of fights, practice. Most of them were probably staged because we were so exhausted that, me and Kelvis White would stage one and get on the bottom of the pile and just lay there while everybody else fought it out. But the last thing I'm doing is taking my helmet off in one of these things, you know, for my own personal protection. So taking it off to use it as a weapon, you know, that's a different level of, you know, just you can't do that. And whether it's against an opponent, whether it's against a teammate, you know, that guy's got to have some correction.
Okay. All right. So, BJ, let's ask you something, man. I want to ask you about why don't you tell us about the A Club, what that really is? A lot of people don't really understand when we're talking about alumni association and all that. Can you kind of give us a rundown of what that is?
First of all, thank you for having me and thank you for asking that question. And we're still trying to let everybody know about the A Club. The A Club is a group of letter winners. It's former student athletes that have received a letter from the University of Alabama. That's all sports. That's not just football. That's not just basketball. That's not just softball. It's all sports of letter winners that are a group that we come together and we hold social events and do different things to welcome back and show appreciation for all of those former student athletes to be able to come back to the University of Alabama and engage with us. So that's the main goal. It's a branch of alumni association in athletics, so to speak.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so the other part that you're doing,
I also forgot. I apologize. We do also have honorary members. We have a lot of members that are honorary members. John F. Kennedy was also an A Club member. Coach Bryant actually gave John F. Kennedy the honorary membership of becoming an A Club member. So John F. Kennedy was an A Club member as well. So we have several different individuals that are, you know, shown a high level of support and just more so appreciation towards the university and service. And that's how we vote on that like once a year. And those members get voted in at the end of the year. So,
okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. All right. So, how does this? Tell me what and both of you guys can kind of speak to this, all right, about the Red Elephant clubs. What the difference in that may be from the Alumni Association, the A Club. Maybe people are getting a little bit confused. I'll start with you, BJ, and then we'll hit Griff later.
Yeah, Red Elephant clubs are a group of I guess you could deem them as boosters that meet in sections of Alabama. That's we have 12 of them. One in Atlanta and another one down on the Emerald Coast, and the rest of them throughout the state of Alabama. Griffith, who's a former football player, brother of ours, that is a president of the one in Huntsville. But they've shown support to the University of Alabama since, who was it, Coach Perkins that kind of helped start this thing off. So they've been a part of the University of Alabama branch for years, and you know they've just shown that level of support throughout time.
Okay. Griff, yeah, how people find you? Those are listening up there that might not be a part of it and want to be a part of it.
Yeah, you can find us on Facebook. We have a Huntsville Red Elephant Club Facebook page. HuntsvilleREC@gmail.com is our club email. And to expound a little bit on what BJ was saying, you know, our original purpose, we were created and we endowed scholarships specifically for football. That was our original purpose. And I think our club is maybe endowed 3, working on 4. And then with the evolution of the NIL and the collective, we kind of shifted that focus to the university's wishes were to send those funds to the NIL because that's where all the traction is now. So there's a lot of people always ask, you know, what is the Red Elephant Club? There's this like secret mystique about it. It's really not that secret. You know, we're a booster club organization attached to the university, and that was our primary original focus. And you know, in the latest stages of college football, we shifted that focus to NIL support, and pretty much the nuts and bolts of it.
All right, so I want to give you this. This will be the last question on this. And it's really more of a statement, or maybe it's a question because y'all, I think both of you guys probably know John Anu Frycheck, who is the president of Tide, Texas, here in the Dallas area, which is not a Red Elephant. It's more, I guess you just call it the National Alumni Association, part of that piece. And so he was looking for ways to, or asking, he's trying to figure out how can we partner? How can they partner up through you guys somehow? Golf tournaments, joint stuff to be able to raise money and maybe collaborate somehow. So I'll leave that to BJ to do whatever you want to with it, but he just wanted to make sure that I let you know publicly that he wanted to.
tell him I'm actually very interested in having a further discussion with that. For those, and Griff, you're aware, George, you're aware. One of the things we did over the past couple of years was partner with the National Alumni Association. One of the things, it's interesting when you're a former player, then you move over into the administrative role, right? Or former player, then you work behind the scenes in the front office. So one of the things I began to do is kind of have to look at things in a couple of different ways. I asked myself, what is it that I wanted as a student athlete? Then what would I like as a former student athlete, so to speak, as an A club member? And so what we did was we partnered with the Alumni Association, the National Alumni Association. So Jimmy Warren, who's I think his role is the executive director of the National Alumni Association. So in regards to those discussions, one of the things we've done is in that partnership is trying to expand our efforts and give our former student athletes a home. Otherwise, you can much easier find a alumni in a group more than you can as a just by numbers a former student athlete. Although our brotherhood and our bond as letter A club members are very close, to have a house, the Alumni Association allows us to kind of have that house and that whatever it is that we go, much like yourself, George, you found the Tide in Texas, which is a large group out in Texas that does a great job with their Alumni Association and partner with a lot of our former student athletes. I love the things that they're doing. And so we we do have plans of growing in that area.
Okay, excellent. I do appreciate it. All right, so let's flip into a little bit of football now. So me and Griffin just kind of bounce off each other a little bit. I have a few that I want to ask you for sure. And one is actually to your journey on how you actually got to Alabama. I was reading that maybe it might not have been your first choice, that maybe you were thinking of doing something else. So what made you decide on attending Alabama? BJ.
Oh, me. You're absolutely correct. I won't say the other school that I had contemplated going, in which I was raised a fan of another school growing up. And so, went to visit the other school. I actually, I went to visit the other school. I went to a Nike camp at the other school, and then, did all the things that I possibly could. And at that particular time, I didn't understand what a scholarship was. I didn't understand, all the things that are around. I was just playing football because that's what we did, right? You come down in the country, you go South Alabama, we play football because that's what you do. Never thought about a scholarship. Never thought about receiving a scholarship. To say the other name, Auburn gave me my first scholarship, and then I went to visit the campus of school, and I said, this is not the place that I want to be. This is not for me at that particular time. And so I decided to go visit Alabama, and it was everything that I could dream of in regards to presentation, the love that I was shown there, the academics and things along those lines. They just kind of seemed like well more put together in what I was actually aspiring to become. So not that I was actually thinking about what I was going to be outside of football because I wanted to go pro. Alabama at that time, in my mind, gave me the best opportunity to go pro. And so that's why I chose Alabama.
Okay. All right. I like that idea. I mean, well, I got choices. I just assumed that Tuscaloosa was probably your place that you had to go shopping in or whatever. I don't know. It's like big city to you to get out.
Oh, it is. It still was back then. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you've been coached, and I see some questions popping up over here that some people want to get to, and I'm going to get to those. So y'all keep putting those questions in over in the comments. I'll get them on so he can see them. All right. There's a couple I want to make sure that I get to first. So you, like I said in the intro, you were coached by a couple different coaches, right? And now you've worked with multiple coaches, so when you serve under them, what trait is it that these coaches have that make them all successful like that? What is the thing that makes them have that to be great?
One of the things that kind of bothered me initially and still kind of bother me is, I know we kind of tend to look at results and things along those lines. And truthfully, there's a lot of things that have to work out right in order for a coach to be successful. There's a lot of things that kind of go into it. So when I first came into it, I was actually being recruited by Mike Price. Then when I got here, I got, recruited by Mike Shula after that. And then I came here, I played for him for a majority of my time here. Most people thought that Coach Shula was kind of like a lax type of coach, but that wasn't true. It's just what they saw from Coach Saban, right? So Coach Shula was more so, he was definitely an accountable coach. And he was put in when you were looking from the outside looking in, I think at that time we were under probation for that particular time. He was perfect for what we needed. Still talk to him today. That shows that he's a relational coach. And things along those lines. So, that was his niche. Then Coach Saban comes in. To be honest with you, I was a little bit frightened whenever I heard about Coach Saban coming in, right? There was a transition. You got Coach Kynes that was the interim head coach when we were down at what bowl was that in the Shreveport Bowl that we went to?
Music City Bowl or something?
No, that's Nashville. That was
Weed Eater Bowl is what it was.
Yeah. So we were down there. Coach Kynes was the interim head coach at that time, and you kept hearing rumblings about Coach Saban being the head coach. Then when you hear about the rumblings, you go look it up on YouTube, and YouTube was real back then. So you look up on YouTube, and I saw him walking an offensive lineman for the Miami Dolphins back to the locker room because he showed up overweight, and the guy's crying. I'm like, this dude's getting paid millions of dollars, and he's crying? What is he going to do to us? So there was a little bit of a fear factor that came into it for us. But when he got here, man, I can honestly say the mixture between Coach Shula and Coach Saban couldn't have been nothing better to prepare me for what was life after football. Coach Saban's attention to detail was unlike anything that you've ever seen. The truth of it, his relentless pursuit to perfection, to the process, it was unlike anything that you've ever seen. And to see it as a player, you really don't see it too much. You just wonder why he is the way that he is. But then when you work for him on the back end of it, because I did work in recruiting at Bama before I went to Georgia State. And so I saw it at that level. So I was like, man, the amount of pressure that he put on himself. I actually talked about this recently. That number 28-3, his assistant coaches, he won 28-3 is the record that he has against his assistant coaches. And you look at that, and everybody talks about the process, right? The process was more so the fact that he hounded that on everybody, not just the players, not just the staff, not just the coaches. It began to grow even outside of the city, right? So that was one of the most fascinating things that it was to me. If you think about it, even back in 2008, one of the biggest things we know, and I always talk to you about this, George, that sports is a microcosm of society, that he was able to help Tuscaloosa to a certain extent, almost kind of avoid the recession back in that time, that we were still having football games in 2008. We won a national championship in 2009, if we remember. That was during the time of what we would call a recession. So to take something that he did, that relentless pursuit, and I was able to admire it and be on the background and see it, I appreciate it. Then after Coach Saban, I went to Georgia State University with Coach Curry. Coach Curry was able, obviously, he was big on education. He was big, almost like a military-esque type of approach, which you come from a military family, George. That's kind of what that was, right? And I appreciated that. He was the one that kind of gave me the door into working in the NFL to a certain extent. Then after that, I saw Andy Reid. Man, to be honest with you, to see the relationship that Coach Reid has with his players is almost like a fatherly-like role. And you typically don't see that in the pros. You really typically don't see that. And so I was proud to have the opportunity to see that. And now coming here to see Coach DaBoer, man, it's almost truthfully like a mixture of all those coaches, right? And to see him have that connection with the players, to know that his history is already there. You don't just wake up and win, and the record that he has a winning record. So I'm excited to see how he's going to take this team and take us to go into this next couple of seasons and see how we kind of turn out. So I'm excited for it, truthfully.
Okay. Man, that's strong, man. Got a lot of stuff there. Okay, so I know he hadn't said it yet, but I know he wants to know. What about playing through coaching changes? How do you deal with that as a player? What do you see?
I mean, it's hard. Truthfully, whenever you are in that locker room, I remember when I forgot who it was, an administrator came in and told us that Coach Shula wasn't going to be our coach anymore. That's just hard to hear. You don't know it's time for you to grow up as an adult at that point in time. It's not like, I knew football was real whenever I first got to Bama and somebody got hurt and they tell you to move the ball up 10 yards. That's when I knew football was real. But I knew that we had to become grown men whenever you see the changes of a coach. You see some of the coaches that you built relationship, like my offensive line coach, Bob Connolly, and my mom still talks him to this day. And so those things are hard. And so you have to kind of grow up through that transition. I even seen it at high school, to be honest with you, man. But when you see it, you just kind of got to understand and you try to figure out what is this going to do for me in my career. Gratefully so, like I said, I chose Alabama because of the tradition that was here, but also the ability that it would be able to put me in the pros. Unfortunately, I didn't make it playing, but I saw it from my working behind the scenes in the front office. But it's just something that makes you grow up in a heartbeat. So that's all I can really kind of share from that perspective of it. And then you kind of get into it. I remember Coach Saban came in. He was really short, direct. This is what we're going to do. And honestly, he kind of got a few guys together that said, hey, I need your support. We're going to have to push this thing forward. Do you guys want to be great? And that's what it was. If you think back to it, 2008, if there wasn't a couple mishaps, that were teetering the line of a championship that year as well.
Mm-hmm.
That was a year after us in 2007. Obviously, it was kind of the 7-5 year and all that stuff. But in 2008, there was almost a championship at that time as well. So it's very impressive to me to see not just leaders of organization and institutions and how they handle transition, and to see the way that Coach Saban was able to handle transition. And not only that, to see the way our organization is now handling the transition after Coach. I remember we got this and I'm rambling on right now, so stop me if you need to.
You answered all my questions without me asking them. What I'm saying?
I'll tell you this brief story. I remember when we have honorary captains for each home game, right? And a part of the process of honorary captains, one of the things we do is go up and make sure our honorary captains get to talk to our athletic director. And one of the questions our athletic directors ask is, hey, at the time when Coach Bear Bryant was getting ready to retire, were we in a good position for a transition to the next coach? Now, granted, Coach Bear Bryant was one of the greatest coaches ever, right? And to be able to see that and hear that is like, when do you ever become ready for a transition of a coach of that caliber and magnitude? We've had two of the greatest coaches that have ever coached college football at this particular time, possibly three, hopefully, that we'll have with Coach DaBoer. But at that particular time, while I was bringing these guys in there, Greg would always ask, he said, were we in a position for a transition? At that point in time, I realized that he was always preparing for what was next. And that's what true leaders do. He's been preparing, not knowing when Coach Saban was going to retire, but been preparing for that moment. And you don't just wait until, hey, I'm done. I think this is it for me. You don't wait for that. You do that as a leader and make sure you have all the lines and things in place. It's not to perfection, because all the coaches that you might have on your list, they might have been gone somewhere. They might have just signed a new contract. And so you kind of got to stay abreast to all those things. But to see the way that it's been handled, man, I'm loving the things I get a chance to see in the background. I love to see the leadership and the changes. It's not easy, but, as Coach Saban would say, if you want to make everybody happy, you sell ice cream.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Hey BJ, one thing you kind of took the wind out of my sails. You answered my question before I got to answer it, but one thing I kind of wanted to, great job. One thing I want to expound on is talking about Coach Shula. So you played through a coaching change. I played through a coaching change in high school as well as college, and so it's always interesting to me because I think you ask the fans, how they rate a coach or grade a coach, and it's always on wins and losses.
Yeah,
that dictates 95% of their opinion of a coach. But some of the best relationships I've got with former coaches were men that weren't retained because we didn't win enough ball games.
Yeah.
And you talk about Coach Shula, and I've never met a player that played for him that did not speak ultimately as high as possible as they could of the man as a coach and as a mentor. So it's interesting to me the differentiation between the fans and the players that have to live with those guys on a day-to-day basis, living in that world together.
Yeah, like I said, it's a lot that kind of goes into this winning, right? Like, we have to make sure that as a fan base, if we want to see Alabama kind of continue to go in the direction that we would like for it to go, we have to take that same approach and mindset with Coach DaBoer. We have to make sure we're behind him, whether there's things that we might like or not like. Like this all, if we are truly an Alabama family, this is a non-negotiable, right? Like when you have discussion, you ask like, what can we talk about? What can't we talk about? What is something that we can negotiate? And the non-negotiable is the fact that if we want to succeed and be in the best position, we all have to be on the same boat together in order to see Coach DaBoer succeed the way that we would like for him to succeed. And as I alluded to earlier, we all benefit from this. Yeah. Coach Saban's success didn't just stay in Tuscaloosa. It didn't just stay at Mal Moore Athletic Facility. It didn't just stay at Bryant-Denny Stadium. It never just stayed there. It went from Tuscaloosa. You hear about people that when I was in Kansas City, they talk about Alabama players there, like, oh, that's a Bama player there. And that's the thing that we want to make sure we continue to have, that whenever we go to places or we go to job interviews or we go to these things, that people are like, oh, you play ball at Alabama? They don't even want to talk about what your career was like. They just want to understand what it was like to be a part of Alabama. That's the greatness that we want Alabama to continue to have throughout. So, I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay, so I got a question from the fan. Again, thank you all, those of you who are on the Alabama Standard Network. We're partners, we're buddies, and we love the interaction that you guys always have. So keep feeding those questions, but here's one from you for you. DJ, you're a former player who experienced coaching transition from Shula to Saban. Talk about the buy-in process from your team and related to what you see from this current team with DaBoer.
I'm not going to lie. I'm not over there with the current team every single day, so I'm not exactly sure. But in terms of the Coach Saban buy-in process, it was, hey, you read the book, The Energy Bus, or by John Gordon. There's, as a leader, in which that's what Coach Saban is, you're going to have different characteristics. You're going to have different personalities. You just got to kind of try to find the way in order to achieve what they needed to achieve. And that's the thing that Coach Saban was able to do. Like it was no negotiation. The process is the process. And he harped on that every single day. I'll never forget one of the things that he talked about is showing showing what you're selling every day. And so if we walk into place and our body language is a certain way, I didn't realize that I might be giving off a certain different energy to my buddy that's a locker across from me. So you have to change your mindset. And that's the thing, that you come into the building every single day with a certain mindset that you want to make sure that you're being a champion every single day. And the crazy thing is, man, I promise you this. The crazy thing about this is the fact that I played for Coach Saban for about 1 year. I got hurt after that. So my junior year, I played for him. Then my senior year, I didn't get a chance to play because of the knee injuries I went through, all that crap. But to be able to have that ability to be around it, man, it's unlike anything that you could. I wake up every single day, every single morning. I don't want to go to the gym. I don't want to do certain things. And I just cannot allow myself to accept anything less than my best, whatever I can give during that day. I cannot do it. And that's the crazy thing about it. like my wife and I talk about it. Like she's like, why are you this way? Like literally the day before our wedding, I'm laying in bed and I open my eyes and the first thing I say is, I gotta find a gym. She said, we're about to get married in a couple hours, and the first thing you're asking about when you wake up in the morning is a gym. I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. I'm just made this way. And so that's the kind of mentality that you bring to it and you attack and you show, because truthfully, life was just hard. And I thank Coach Saban for that and making sure somebody spelled it wrong. I,
Yeah.
I
see, we wonder how that happened. How everybody got Saban spelled all these different ways.
Oh God, the different ways too. I think I appreciate that understanding that Alabama football was so hard for me, but life also was so hard. So Alabama football could not have done anything better than to prepare me for what life had in store after that.
Okay, yes, sir. I do
Hey,
appreciate it.
I got a question. You alluded to your injury your senior year. Talk about that a little bit. I know that had to be a tough situation. You put in the time. You're there 4 or 5 years, and then circumstances like that happen. Talk about that experience a little bit and what it was like going through it with a new coaching regime that maybe you didn't have.
Well, when you go through your first injury, so I had this finger right here, I tore my flexodigitorum profundus. I'll never forget the word.
Yeah, what?
Flexodigitorum profundus, which is what we call in football terms jersey finger.
Right.
So I tore that. That kind of wiped away my freshman year, and it's a lot of stuff that kind of goes into it, right? I was supposedly highly touted in high school, and then I come to Bama, and then I'm like, man, football is real. I almost quit, dude. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. Then I came and I started as a redshirt freshman. Then I started as a redshirt sophomore. My time just kept decreasing. Then I had my first knee injury. Then I was like, man, it kind of slowed things down. I needed this break. Then you get back into it. It's like, okay, then I have another knee injury, and then another one, and another one. And it just what I started seeing was the light diminished from my career in regards to thinking I was going to go pro. It was one of the best things that could have happened to me. One of the absolute best things, because if I can only imagine if I had ever thought that I was going to go pro, like a few of my teammates, they were absolutely first round draft picks without a doubt. If that would have happened to me in that caliber when I was going into my junior year or senior year and thinking I was going to get ready to go pro, and that would happen to me just like that, man, I don't know what I would have been doing. Mm-hmm. So it helped me transition to the point where, okay, I need to take this school thing serious, right? Like my GPA was a 2.3 at first. Then after that, I kind of boosted it up into a 2.8. And then it just helped me transition into, okay, let's take life more serious, because football is not going to be there afterwards. You hear it all the time, but until you meet the maker, it's not real to you. And so that's kind of what happened to me, was it allowed me time to transition into what was going to be life after football.
Good stuff. Good stuff, man. Dealing with adversity, and I won't go back to the other segment. Y'all saying I just need to make sure this is kind of cooler, because we're all kind of little brotherhood here that all kind of had transition with coaches, because I had Bill Curry and then Stallings, and that was a hard time to try to go through in my freshman year, and I'm like, what does that mean for me? And although transferring wasn't quite as big as it is now. Trust me, I thought about it at the same time too. But one of the things that you were saying, also you were talking about changes and how things evolve. We've had a lot of that here, so I kind of want to ask you about that too now, because I don't know how you guys' practices were, but we didn't have no music and stuff at our practice. It was just the sound of the helmets clicking and the chin straps going and a bunch of yelling and a bunch of cussing. So now we got DaBoer's kind of came in and changed the atmosphere a little bit. Got the music a little bit looser. I've talked to some of the guys. I think they all love it, right? I got to speak to them at the SEC Media Days. But I'm kind of curious now, because you talk about front office stuff and all this kind of stuff. How is it? What is the difference now? We look at the practice field, but what about in the building, man? When you're dealing with coaches and stuff, what does the atmosphere look like or change when you have a new coach like this now?
I mean, it's just more so the leadership from that coach in particular. But you know, when I was in Kansas City, we were doing music at that point of time. So I was in Kansas City for 8 years. I had completely forgot the fact that we didn't have music at practice when I was playing at Bama. Like I completely forgot about it. But when I just think it's more so different strokes for different folks. It's not like either of those are bad. It's just more so how do you get guys to continue to focus in a certain direction, right? Now I do think we're at a cross point of a different generation right now where they do enjoy music, but you know, I don't know that I think it is the guys seem to be okay with it. They're fine with it. And, you know, I think the biggest thing is going to be just more so no matter what is execution for everybody. So
You still got to play. You still got to play the game on Saturday.
Hey, I want to chime in about something on this because I was totally taken aback at the amount of attention that the thing about music at practice got from people, you know, on social media. People were going bananas about it. George, how long have we been pumping in crowd noise when we play Tennessee? I mean, that's been going on since the beginning of SEC football, pumping in crowd noise. Well, have anybody that's been to a game at Bryant-Denny Stadium in the last 10 years? It's like a concert going on the entire game. I don't know why we haven't been practicing like this for 10 years.
I 100% agree. I love the light show that we got, man. I kind of feel, you know, you go to certain stadiums and you be judging the light shows and stuff like, oh, they booty, man. They lights.
Yeah, and you think about it down there on the sideline, it's dark, you know, and you got these LED lights flashing. It's like they're trying to game plan and change things up. So, I mean, there's a lot of distractions going on during the course of a game, visually, audibly. You know, I think that only helps us prepare.
Yeah, that's right.
The game is much bigger than what it used to be now anymore. There's a production behind it. There's a lot of things that are timing behind it. So I have the opportunity now to work with a lot of people that kind of goes through the details, where there is the minute by minute of the game of understanding like who's going to come out on timeout, when is the timeout going to be, you know, what happens during the timeout and all that stuff. So like there's a lot of stuff that kind of goes into play whenever you're actually playing a football game. You know, it's going to be 3 hours. If it's overtime, it's going to be a little bit over that. And so you got to feel the entertainment, right? And so, again, sports is a microcosm of society. You understand that younger kids now they're playing on their iPads all the time, and so they're attracted to that light. And so this is the prime time to begin to have, you know, lights and entertainment and attraction and all that type of stuff that's going on within the game. That's what the people want. That's what the fans like to see. Now that's what's beginning to change in our fan base here pretty soon. So
hey, you know what's one of my favorite parts? Lights up.
Yeah.
Lights down. It's so stupid. Lights up. Lights out. I love everybody like them night games, boy. It'd be so
and it's the phones, right? Like figuring out get people to use their phones. You could use
Did we lose them?
Self changing.
Okay. All right. So I need to say this little joke a little bit, right? Because a lot of times people think we know, Griff, the stadium in and out. You know, they just assume because you play there, like you know every little crack and crevice, and you know every little shortcut, whatever, whatnot. Well, I don't. I can read the signs like everybody else, section JJ or J or way up top S's and all that kind of stuff, right? But it's so funny to me when you're talking to BJ because he works here now, and oftentimes I might be there and I try to catch up with him and see where he is, and he's like, "Where you at?" And he's trying to tell me where to go. See, if you're around BJ, he moved kind of slow too, right? He never in a hurry to get anywhere. So it's like Michael Myers, you know, from Friday the 13th. He just kind of moving slow, right? And he'd be like, "I'll be there in a minute." And just all of a sudden, he'd just pop up on you like, bam, right from underneath the stairs somewhere, like, "What's up, George?" You know, I'm like, "Hold on, man. Where you come from, man? What you doing, man?" But anyway.
It's when you work here at the stadium, honestly, man, it's you have to take pride in what you do. And so I've grown to know, like, if anybody were to ever get a tour from me, George, you know, Griff, I did give you a tour. You and your family, I think.
You did.
I take pride in every single little thing I do. From getting to know the little intricacies of the stadium, the little routes that people don't know about, the things that they aren't aware about, the places that they might reside to in regards to their names somewhere on the stadium or have been a part of a championship team and show them that, the walking through the tunnel to get them kind of hype. I love every single part of that. And so when I take pride in my job, I like for people to see that pride in regards to the things we built here at Alabama. So I love for people to experience it. I absolutely do.
Okay. Well, good. All right. So
I you like that.
So I got a question for both of y'all, and I want Griff to go first. We were talking about lineman stuff, right? Playing offensive guard or offensive tackle. Griff, which one has to be the better athlete, a guard or a tackle?
Clearly guard. You know, that's why they moved me from tackle, because they said you're far too athletic to be out here. We're going to need you to step down inside and take care of these two gaps. I mean,
BJ?
Facts are facts.
It's hard for me to say, right? It depends on what you're discussing in regards to athletic, right? So I think guards are somewhat a little bit more quicker. They're bigger and they're stronger. So if you're talking about big, fast, strong, or big, quick, and strong, that kind of relates to guard. But I do think tackles are faster. The hips are more flexible. Typically, they're basketball players that have been football players, or football players have been basketball players. They transition between the two. I would have to kind of err on the side of much more tackles, right? Like, you got to block these smaller guys that are a lot quicker to you, got better bend. I was a guard majority of my life, so I'm going to have to say tackles, to be honest with you.
Okay.
So let me clear it up for you. So if in all seriousness, if you want to make a judgment on this, you take myself and you take Chris Samuels, and this could be 30 years ago or this could be today, and you put us right next to each other and you tell me who the better athlete is. That pretty much answers the question.
That'll do it.
Well, see, then this is what I've been thinking about, because I did that to kind of pitch you guys about this. But I would bet and I would argue that some people would say the most athletic lineman might have to be the center.
I wouldn't argue that.
I see.
No,
I think they're well-rounded.
Absolutely not. No. For all the centers out there, forgive me for throwing this out there in this way. No. Now, granted, intellect, I would definitely say they are the quarterbacks. Sometimes they are the quarterbacks of the offense. But in regards to physical abilities, think about it. You got help to the left and to the right of you every single time.
But BJ, they got to snap the ball. They got the head down. They got to move left and right.
Too high, snap the ball, reach it too high, man. See, I was also the backup center, so I'm also a little biased here too.
Yes, I agree with you on the part of having to remember the snap and all that stuff. Most of that stuff is cerebral. But to think that you have to really blow a guy off the ball like you do at guard or at tackle, nobody's asking their center to blow a guy 10 yards down the field.
No, but you ask them to pull too on the snap. I just think about Kelsey in the league, whatever. He be snapping.
That's different. You don't see that all the time. You don't see centers doing that all the time, snapping and pulling. Now, granted, like the more athletic ones, yeah, but you don't expect those out of your centers.
I think you look at Kelsey and you look at Ryan Kelly, and they're probably two enigmas.
I would say even Parker, our guy that we got at Bama right now. I mean, he's ranked number 1 at center for a reason right now. Like, the dude is quick, great leverage, smart, all those things that we talk about that can reach the two and get outside and pull. I mean, I think he would be just as good.
Okay. Well,
it's like anything else. It's like, who's a better athlete, cornerback or safety? You know, it's everybody's got different skills.
Well, I'll take a page out of your playbook. Obviously, safety.
Yeah.
Because we got to cover the slot, and we got to blitz, and we got to stop the run. what is the argument? I don't even know what y'all talking about. They overpay them corners too much, man, because they ain't even got a tackle, man. They just
I got a question for you. Do you move from safety to corner or corner to safety?
Well, what? That's good. You should be able to play both.
You move from corner to safety as your career,
But
and
you can't take the hitting out. If you were too physical of a corner, they will move you to safety because you're a better athlete. And they need those people in there. If you're a soft corner,
I'm not taking away from safeties at all. There's some great safeties out here that can play corner for sure. But more times than not, you see people move from corner to safety. More so for their physical attributes, being long, rangy.
okay.
Yeah, but
Because safeties don't want to take a step down. You know what I mean? We don't want to go
we
down.
can have this conversation for hours here. I just want you to know that.
Well, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we got about 5 more minutes, 4.5 actually, and this has been great. I really appreciate both of you guys with this. So
Blocking scheme is what you were going to ask.
I do want to know about running game. You know, now we've been talking about this and we've been kind of kidding kind of stuff. What are the runs that you guys personally like, and what do we think we're going to see out of the Tide this year? I studied a lot of film on that. I saw that he was running out of zones and all this stuff. And I know you're not watching practice or whatever, so it's not even that. It's just really a thought process.
I got you.
You know, what does it need to really look like? You know, what would you like to see? So your favorite run first, BJ, favorite type of run. And
okay. I started out as a man blocker, right? Gap blocking, man blocker, which, Griff, you can attest to this. That is the hardest form of blocking that you could ever have. You think 300 on 300, you don't move very far unless you're really, really good. So my favorite is actually zone blocking, because I understood the angles and all of those things.
Hold on, which zone? Inside or outside?
Both. It doesn't matter. When you talk about zone, it's just because when you're
your angles are different.
No, true. But when you're inside zone, you're reading this angle right here, the L of your head to your shoulder. But when you're inside, you reading more tight of an inside zone, head right here. But when you're outside, you're reading more on the outside of the shoulder. So if you move your head right here, and I do this as a zone blocker, I know the defensive lineman is going to try to take on this angle right here. So my job is to get my head back outside, lock my hand back inside, and if he kind of overruns, I got an opportunity to block him 2 different ways. I could take him up and push him back at this angle and go back at that direction, or if he overruns, I got a chance to have my hand backside and push him across, or the running back could push backside for me. So when you're doing zone, it gives you options, and who doesn't like options?
All right. What about you, Griff?
Well, so like BJ, I like zone, and I think for me it was a function of, I played defensive line. I never played offensive line in high school, and so they made that move for me in my redshirt freshman year, and so you never played offensive line, and I'm nearly 6'7". I mean, it's tough to line up in a 3-point stance and go 315 on 315 and get leverage if you've never had to do that before. And to try to do that, on an SEC level with one spring's worth of experience, it's difficult. So we were, and this is, nearly 25 years ago. So zone blocking techniques were kind of catching on. And Neil Calloway, our coach, he was big on it. And so I really liked that. I could adapt to the combination blocking schemes between myself and the tackle and myself in the center. And that was easier for me to adapt to working those combination blocking schemes in the zone scheme. So, I've always been a big fan of zone, but my hands down favorite run play, which we've all but abandoned in football today, is the toss sweep. And, it's probably because we had Sean Alexander and we just chunked that son of a bitch out there to him, and he'd take it to the house 9 times out of 10. I love that play, and nobody ever runs it. And you'll never see anybody more excited to me than when you see on Saturday in today's game when we bust out a tall sweep. I love it.
Yes, sir. Well, that's good. So, all right. So here's my thought. You guys see if you think the same. Last year when I was studying DaBoer at Washington, he ran a lot of zone. They pulled a little bit, some kind of traps, very little power and all this kind of stuff. I know we as fans, most of us Alabama fans, we're always talking about run the damn ball, right? And I actually like the power play myself. Now I'm not a lineman, I don't know what that means, but I like, the puller and somebody kicking. I just love the doggone play. So I always look forward to stuff like that. When we're thinking about this team, this will be the last go around. What do you think his philosophy is going to be? Is he going to fall into guys like me and say, man, it's SEC, power football, this and that? Or you just, we're bigger. I guess we're faster. I don't know. Do you think the way that we play with our line up front, does it change much?
I think the best thing that you could do in this position, and I've heard Coach DaBoer actually say this in a few of his interviews. He's the type of coach that's going to just take what is given, right? Like no matter what it is. I mean, I did my own research as well, of him being at Washington. He ran a bunch of multiples. And so he did it wasn't just zone blocking, it wasn't just gap blocking, it wasn't just man blocking. It wasn't any of just that. He did a lot of multiples, and within his multiple sets, he does a lot of shiftings and did motions.
Amen.
It's hard to kind of line up as a defense like that. And those, I think, to a certain extent, those are the things that kind of really put you in a position of success when you really have athletic players like we have. And not only that, I heard Jalen Milroe on a couple of his interviews, in which this dude is phenomenal with his interviews.
Yep.
I love hearing his interviews, but one of the things he kind of talked about is he gets the opportunity to talk to Coach DaBoer about plays that he liked and plays that he don't like. These are the same things that Pat Mahomes does with Andy Reid. He gets a chance to go up to Andy Reid and say, hey, coach, this is the play I like this week. This is the play I don't like this week. I like this play right here this week. I like this. I don't like this play. So to have the autonomy and the ability to be able to say that, I think that is like phenomenal position to be in. So
huge.
Yeah.
It's huge.
So multiples is the response that I got.
Okay, I got it. You feel the same way, Griff, from what you know?
Yeah, I do. And I think one thing you got to look at too is, and what I think fans lose sight of a lot of times is, a team offensively, running game, passing game, defensively, where you're strong. You can't be all things to all people. So if you look at the good teams, very rarely are your great passing teams great running teams, and very rarely are your great run stop teams on defense great pass stop teams. So you kind of have to play to what your strengths are. And I think Coach DaBoer's history of a open passing game, I think probably lends itself to the zone running scheme because, like BJ mentioned earlier, it gives you flexibility, it gives you options. The same play can look 5 different ways against 5 different fronts.
Yeah.
So it's easier to practice and play to your strengths in the passing game, while give you the avenue of a running game that you can be solid at without having to dedicate just as much time to the running game.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to end it with this. I think that you guys are definitely right. And one thing that I saw in the spring game that totally blew me away, it was alluding to what BJ was saying primarily, I think, is even the formations he was running during the spring, and I charted a lot of them. He was coming out in quads and then motioning and shifting this up and then just trying to find those angles or those mismatches, whether it was up front with linemen or maybe in the secondary, to try to give our players the best advantage. Now, these are just with us. You don't typically show that in spring, not the kind of formations that he was doing because, people are watching it, whether it's on TV or whatever it's going to be.
Yeah.
But maybe you showed it because you said, hey, we're Alabama and this is the things you're going to have to be ready for this. Nothing's going to change, as far as the way that I run my offense. So that gave me a whole lot of excitement to me because that showed that, one, he had trust in the lineman to know all the shifts and all this kind of stuff and making calls and adjustments. Same way with the quarterback, as you alluded to, Jalen Milroe, sharp. He's got to be able to know what the heck is going on. So I'm really looking forward to how we run the ball, but more so how this offense looks, even though I'm the defensive guy.
Most people say it's not about the X's and O's. They typically say it's about the Jimmys and Joes. But I think it's a mesh between them both because there's always the common argument that you'll have, like, would Bill Belichick be Bill Belichick without Tom Brady? Now we're going to be able to have the discussion of, would Pat Mahomes be Pat Mahomes with Andy Reid, or would Andy Reid be Andy Reid without Pat Mahomes? And I think whenever you look at situations like this, it's always best to be able to have some of the best players and have one of the best coaches. And obviously his history is already there. You see the winning already. So I think we're in a really good spot.
All right. All right. Well, so as we get ready to wrap this up, Griff, why don't you tell everybody how they can find you, social medias, or whatever you need for people to follow you, brother?
Yeah, man. I'm at PaperMill75 on Twitter. You can find me under Griff Red Mill on Facebook. If you're interested in Red Elephant Clubs, Huntsville Red Elephant Clubs of Alabama on Facebook, or Huntsville REC at gmail.com.
All right. All right. BJ, what about you? Well, you got all kind of social media things, brother. What you got?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, obviously BJ Stabler. Same thing as Twitter, at BJ Stabler. My Instagram name is at Higher Learning, which is interesting. Higher Learning 61 is my Instagram name. And obviously my email address is stabler61 at gmail.com. So I love all my 8 club members. Also love the Red Elephant Club. So I appreciate everybody and their support that they have towards the university. And first of all, thank you, George. Let's give a shout out to George for one. I'm gonna give him 2 things. One, creating a scholarship in his family's name, which is one of the first time you actually see guys give back. There's, I think the number is less than 4% guys, former student athletes, kind of give back or create a scholarship in their name. George has already beaten that on. Not only has he done that, him and Tony Johnson actually, just as of last week, it's been fully started the endowment process already, which the endowment process is $25,000. Started the endowment process with the 1992 national championship team. They started a Century of Champions scholarship. So major shout out to George and Tony on starting that. And then on top of that, for George starting one for him and his family, which kind of got my wheels thinking and preparing one for myself and my son and my family as well. So shout out to George for that, the Teague Family Scholarship.
I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. And I do appreciate all the members of the 1992 team that helped make that happen. You know, I love the university, and I'm always their support. And I am a true fan as well, too, so we got to worry about me flaking on that. You know what else I'm a true fan of? I'm a true fan of BJ. He needs to start a new page on TikTok, because what you don't know, we have not talked about, is this guy, he knows how to do Greek dance. You know, his wife is from Greece, and he took me and Consuelo to this little thing, and then we had to do this little stuff. And man, I didn't know what was going on, Griff, but I had to figure it out, man.
He was sweating. He was.
Oh, so we did a little Greek dance. He needs to have his own little page just designed to that, so you can see how he be moving with it. But anyway, man, we're going to get out of here. Appreciate everybody for being part of this show tonight. Griff, thank you for coming in, sitting in for JT tonight. You're awesome, man. BJ, tell the wife, kids, everybody, you know, hello for me too. But with that, we're going to say